Hello everybody and welcome to the Redmen TV and your latest Liverpool transfer news update. Yes, my name's Dan Clubb. I'm going to be here for the next half an hour or so talking all things Liverpool transfers, talking all things Newcastle, Darwin Núñez probably a little bit as well. There's quite a few news stories to get through today, as is so often the case at this time of year. Obviously in the very final few days now of the transfer window, obviously 11 o'clock Friday night, that shuts. And just to let you know, there's a little bit of a date for your diary. Myself and Chris will be here all week, keeping you abreast of what's going on in the land of the Reds. And on Friday, deadline day itself, we will be here all day, and I mean all day, to hopefully bring you some news from Liverpool signings. I mean, hopefully we get it done before then, to be fair. Like Thursday would do for me, to be fair. But I think deadline day feels as though we might be getting involved. Liverpool aren't often involved in deadline day, but this one, it's been a mad summer for the Reds in many ways. This could well cap it off. A mad final day of the window would just about put the icing on the cake of Liverpool's summer. And yeah, I'm here to talk about some news. Before I do so, I want to touch on what happened yesterday because why not? It was mental. It was one of the maddest games I've ever seen. Liverpool were very good for 5 minutes and then completely lost our way for like 25 minutes. The Trent incident just completely threw us. Newcastle gained loads of energy. They were much the better team. Obviously, Trent essentially capitulated in front of our very eyes. Virgil van Dijk gets sent off, but I mean, you can kind of gloss over all that and just talk about Darwin Núñez, the incredible Darwin Núñez. What a performance that was. What a cameo. What a statement. And I just hope that can be sort of a springboard for him to kick on from. I think he needed that. He's clearly been frustrated by his lack of game time, and I really just hope he can use that and sort of build on that momentum and become a key player for us, because he showed us in that glimpse, he showed us in previous glimpses as well, that he has bags and bags of ability. He can be clinical, he can be lethal in front of goal, he has got that top draw finishing level. We just need to see it more often, and if he can sort of, like I say, if he can use that, then yeah, happy days. Happy days indeed. But let's talk news. I'll quickly run through some of the chats before I do so. Mike Andrew, one of our members here. First like, nice and early. Yeah, good man, you were nice and early. I seen you as I was waiting. I actually did like our bite-sized episode before this and you were there then. So yeah, very, very early. Impressive stuff. Yuri Chronic, another one of our members, says Hincapié 99% ain't going anywhere. I'll touch on him in a little bit. Full disclosure, over the weekend, I made it my duty to speak to like a few different journalists from a few different patches, and one of them was the Leverkusen guy for Sport Bild. These articles are on Redmen TV website, by the way, if you want to check them out. There's a part 1 and a part 2, both exclusives, with I think it was 6 different journalists in the end, about 8 different players, and got sort of the latest line from each of them. And unfortunately, Yuri Chronic, this is the point I wanted to make, the Bayer Leverkusen journo, Philip Ahrens from Sport Bild, essentially said the same thing. He told me there was a 70 million sort of asking price on Hincapié. At the minute, he's not going anywhere. Bayer Leverkusen, Xabi Alonso, of course, the manager at Bayer Leverkusen, is making plans to use him this season. He's currently out injured, of course, but he is very much in Leverkusen's plans. So yeah, you might be right. I hope you're not, because I would quite like to sign him. Yeah, last few comments before I go into our news now. Yeah, I agree with you on this, by the way. Vivmich Soul. Bruce Chua? What are your thoughts on Kone? I think he'd be a great signing and would fit that multi-purpose 8-6 we were supposedly looking for. Yeah, I actually agree with you, to be honest with you, mate. I do. And Kone is kind of a name that's come back onto the radar. Obviously, earlier on in the summer, it was Kone and Thuram, was it? Like, I sat here countless times and spoke about Manu Kone and Kefren Thuram. It was kind of always looked like it was going to be those two, possibly one of them, but it did feel like it might be both of them at one point. Obviously, we then sort of pulled the trigger on McAllister and Szoboszlai, which I made up with, by the way. Obviously Endo comes after, but I think you're right, Bruce. I think he does fit that bill of playing that sort of hybrid 8-6. I think we are looking for that multi-purpose one, that one who can play multiple roles. We've got Endo now in as the sort of the obvious nailed on. You're just a 6. That's that box ticked. And now it feels like we are after someone like a Kone. Gravenberch comes into that category a little bit as well. I want to talk about him, obviously, in greater deal in just a moment. But yeah, Kone. And the thing with the Kone one is, I think he'd be relatively cheap. Off the top of my head, I think he was around the €35 million mark early on this summer. Jörg Schmadtke is obviously our sporting director, and Borussia Mönchengladbach's sporting director is currently Jörg Schmadtke's son, Neil Schmadtke. So if a deal's going to get done, it does feel like one that's massively achievable for Liverpool, because you could probably just text his son and say any chance. Chris sort of takes offence by me saying Endo ticks the 6 box. I think he does. He is most definitely a 6. Would I have rather signed Moises Caicedo or Declan Rice or somebody of that ilk? Probably. But I don't think we can sort of argue that Endo is definitely a 6. And I think he did a good job there. I think yesterday and the Bournemouth game are really sort of, if anyone's judging Endo based on what we've seen so far I think he's played like a 90 minutes of football put together, pretty much with 10 men exclusively. I think it's far too early to be judging Endo, to be honest. But let's wait and see. A lot of you talking about the Salah stuff, and I'll touch on that just briefly. It isn't the main reason I'm here, and I'll give it sort of all the airtime I believe it deserves. But there is a tweet that's gone out just before I came live from James Benge, who is a CBS sports reporter. He has said that Al Ittihad had prepared an offer of a €150 million package for Mohamed Salah. Liverpool, who do not want to sell, would get a guaranteed €100 million. Not all of add-ons would necessarily be achievable. And it says that Salah would receive a salary package comparable with Neymar and Ronaldo. Now, what's fascinating about that, I mean, there's a few things fascinating about that. 150 million package isn't enough anyway. Let's get that out there. I don't think that was enough at the start of the window, let alone when there's like 4 days left in the window. That's a ludicrous time to be selling your best player. But probably the most interesting line, and the line that makes me just completely dumbfounded by it, is the fact that it says not all of the add-ons would be achievable. Well, why would we sign up for that then? Like, who in their right mind would agree to those add-ons? Like, what are we saying? Like, win the Euros with Egypt or something? Is that what we're talking about here? Or win the Champions League this year if you're Al Ittihad? I don't understand, quite frankly. But anyway, I will touch on it. It's not enough money. It wasn't enough money 6 weeks ago. It's definitely not enough money now. Anyway, Neil O'Callaghan, I just mentioned your super chat before I move on, buddy. Back to being negative. Is that you or me? Endo, or you, I think. Endo is simply not good enough. Good as a squad player. Oh, it's just gone up. Sorry, 1 second. Got it back. But he cannot be a main starter. He's 30. He does not have time to bed in. No, he doesn't have time to bed in. I agree with that. I think he can be a main starter for us. I don't think that's the case necessarily. I get that he hasn't got time to bed in, but I think the reason we've signed him is because he doesn't need much time to bed in. I think clearly Klopp, Schmadtke, etc., have seen a player there, and they've seen an opportunity for 16 million to go and get a player that they believe can hit the ground running and can do a job for us. I think clearly we missed out on, this comment mentions Lavia, but clearly we missed out on Lavia and Caicedo in the circumstances that we did. There was probably a little bit of panic. And it's not a nice word to use when we talk about transfers, because nobody likes a panic buy. They end up being the worst. See Artemelo. But I think they probably thought, well, we need someone. 100% we need someone. Like we're in the stage now, and our cards on the table, I think we need another midfielder to sort of foolproof what's going to happen this season, and to sort of massively increase our odds of challenging on any possible front. I do think we need another midfielder, because although our options on paper look okay, it's the minute you get sort of beyond the front line that you look at Thiago, injury prone. Boss footy player, but injury prone. Curtis Jones, a talent. We started seeing the best of him last season. Injury prone, injured now. Harvey Elliott, I really like. There's still question marks over him as a proper midfielder. And we know he picked up that freak injury as well. And that doesn't necessarily happen to him again. Of course it doesn't. But you do see there's holes and there's cracks still in that squad in terms of depth when you go down. So I think adding another one just future-proofs you for sort of the maddest possibilities that could and often do happen to Liverpool. And the same could be said for the defence. Like, the defence actually more than the midfield right now is getting the light shone on it, because obviously Konate is currently injured. I think he's going to miss the Villa game, or possibly miss the Villa game. And obviously Virgil van Dijk is now definitely going to miss the Villa game, because I can't see that red card being overturned. So immediately, we're like 3 weeks into the season, and the defence suddenly looks not paper thin, but there's cracks starting to appear already. And that's without an injury to Joel Matip or Joe Gomez, who, as we know, are notoriously prone to getting injured. So, yeah, I want a centre-half. I want a midfielder. Anyone's going to say me that I don't, that's wrong, because I think that we need to before Friday's deadline. I think that makes us a much, much stronger squad. I really do. And Milesy20, who's in our Discord, by the way, I'm going to bring up the Discord via my phone because we haven't yet found a way to get it on the screen. I apologise. But Milesy20 agrees with me there. He says, I hope we still get one, maybe two before the window shuts, but I'll be glad to see the end of this window. It's lasted an eternity. Yeah, it has. It's been a long old time. And it's been a long old month, and it might be a long old week. I'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I agree with you on the 1 or 2 front, mate, 100%. The Irish Wheelstone Raider, live, which is a name. 100 mil is nothing. Lavia was 50 mil. I only got that comment up because I wanted to say, did anyone see Romeo Lavia sat in the stands the other night for Chelsea? Like, what's he gone there for? The whole thing about him saying he just want to be second choice for Liverpool and all that sort of stuff. Like, what's that about? Like, really, what is that about? People asking if Matip's injured. Yeah, he did come off. We haven't had any clarification on why that was yet. I sort of speculated this morning upstairs that he might not have been injured, but given the lack of football that he's had, the lack of intense football he's had, certainly, maybe they were trying to protect him against injury. Because obviously the fitness guys, the science guys on the bench might have been saying he's getting dangerously into the red zone now. We need to get him off before something does happen. And obviously without Konate, with Van Dijk likely to be missing, as talented and as sound as Jarell Quansah was, we need to protect Joel Matip for a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. That's very much me speculating. TRS Juan, one of our members here as well, says he doesn't have any solutions. Well, that's no good. But I do hope we see a couple of signings before the window closes. Yeah, I agree with you, mate. Subway Sweden clarifies that. I think Klopp mentioned. Well, yeah, I didn't actually see that, to be honest with you. I was too busy running around, just going wild last night, to be honest. It was just an insane night after that. The post-match content was crazy. Really good, like, boss to be a part of, and I proper enjoyed myself. I'm still buzzing now, but it was crazy. I didn't actually see any sensible comments. I just seen Jason Tyndall memes and shushing people going around like wildfire, which is what I was there for. But Subway Sweden says the Klopp mentions Matip came off due to match fitness, which again, he's probably getting towards the point in the game whereby if he carries on for too much longer, then there's a risk of something happening, certainly with somebody like Joel Matip, who again, we know is absolutely prone to getting injured. Colin Kremin says, who is the centre mid target now? 4 days left and no links whatsoever. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. Just making sure I've got the Discord chat open still. Let's talk about that then. I won't bring it up on the screen because I've just got the quote from Ryan Gravenberch, our old mate Ryan Gravenberch. So, he played his first minutes of football this season over the weekend for Bayern Munich. They beat Augsburg 3-1. It was actually 3-0 when he came on. Came on with 10 minutes to go. He got booked after like 90 seconds. And then he conceded like 8 minutes later. Now, the goal, I'm not saying it was his fault because it wasn't his fault. But he did play his first minutes. And after the game, unsurprisingly, Bundesliga reporters and journalists made a beeline straight for Ryan Gravenberch. And he was asked about links to Liverpool and, of course, to Manchester United. Now, he didn't say a lot. But I think it's what he didn't say that's kind of important here, actually, because he said, I don't know what will happen in the next days. Now, we all know about links to Liverpool. We know about those links to Manchester United as well. Clearly, there's an Erik ten Hag factor at play with the United stuff. We know Jurgen Klopp's a huge fan of his. And I was told over the weekend again, mentioned that piece I've done. Toby Altshuffle from Bill told me it would be around 20 million as a sort of a minimum for Gravenberch that Bayern Munich would be after. And now if you can get him for anything like 20 million, you've done some very, very good business. Now, with the comments there from Gravenberch, obviously he's not said, I want to go, get me out of this footy club. I don't want to be nowhere near the Allianz anymore. But he also hasn't said, no, I'm quite happy. I'll be here next week. See you then. So he could have easily said that. He could have easily said, no, I'm sticking around at Bayern Munich, I'm going to fight for my place, etc., etc., etc. He didn't. And that, to me, is crucial. The fact, after his first game of the season, he's not come out and said, I'm happy here, leave me alone. That's, in itself, pretty important and can potentially prove to be pretty pivotal because I don't think Bayern Munich have closed the door on his exit just yet. And I actually think he would fit the bill for what we're looking for quite well. So maybe there's something to be done there. Who knows? Remains to be seen. Andy Byrne 50 says they'd like to see our lads playing their proper positions. Yeah, I think we all would, to be honest with you, mate, because we just haven't seen we haven't seen the system, we haven't seen the signings, we haven't seen our players be able to sort of show their true colours yet. I mean, Szoboszlai is the prime example of this in many ways. I think he's been outstanding the last 2 games. But he's been doing the work of like 2 or 3 men. He's been doing it brilliantly. Like, he's like a man possessed. The minute we go down to 10 men, he just goes up a complete other level. But we're not seeing what he can bring in terms of his ability, in terms of his dribbling, in terms of his shooting, all that. We're not seeing all that good stuff, you know what I mean? Because he's having to do all this donkey work, which is great. And I'm so glad we've got him because he's doing it so well. But we're just not allowing our players to shine in the way that they can, because we keep going down to 10 men. Well, we weren't down to 10 men at Chelsea, but we barely had a kick because we just couldn't get our foothold in the game. We couldn't get possession. Like 30% possession by the end of it. And the next 2 games, we've gone down to 10 men both times. So none of our players, McAllister, Szoboszlai, have been able to, like I say, really express themselves, which is quite frustrating. Anyway, some more comments before I move on to our next story. Colin Kremin returns. This name, Tiata and Gravenberch, most likely, you think, Dan. You can get both for under 50 million, probably. I think it'd be around the 50 million mark, mate. Yeah. To mention that story again, I spoke to a few different French journos, one from L'Equipe, who actually wrote the original story about that man over the weekend. He said Leipzig are sort of ahead of us in that particular race, but there has been interest from Liverpool to get something done. So I think that's one that is, again, a bit watch this space. And there's actually reports from France as well. And he told me this at the time, and it's come out since in an actual report, saying that Rennes, the club who he's at, want Joel Matip, which is crazy. Just crazy. Emmanuel Negussi says, no Doucoure, please. His abilities are very limited. He can't even run. That's a bit harsh. That's a little bit harsh. Paul Grimes with the comment as well. When will FSG men, nice, that's very original, not seen that one before, call out the owners? I don't know what that, I say this all the time, I don't know what you mean by call out the owners, if it means for lack of investment. I think a few of us, including myself, have said they haven't invested enough into transfers quite a few times now. I've just said it right that second. So I've seen Dave tweet as well, by the way, people, and I've already mentioned the Salah stuff earlier on in the show. 150 million euros, 100 million guaranteed, nowhere near enough. With add-ons that may not be achievable. What are you talking about? But where was I? Back to investment. Yeah, Liverpool, FSG, they should invest more into our transfer policy, into us signing footballers. I wish they would, and I hope they do. In terms of calling them out and really having a big old conversation about it, I think that's something that will happen if we're sat here this time next week and we haven't signed any more footballers, because I believe that we'll have been left short. For whatever reason that is, whoever you think has made that decision not to go and sign someone, fine, we'll talk about it then. If we don't sign anyone by this, Milesy 28, good point. If we don't sign anyone by sort of this time next week, I think we'll have been left short in the window. I want us to sign a defender and another midfielder, because I think that's what we need to really challenge for anything this season. Europa League, domestic cups, Premier League. I think if we get those 2 things I'm talking about, anything's possible. I'm not writing this off. After watching that yesterday, I think anything's possible. If we can sign another high quality midfield option and another young, talented and quality defensive option who can come in and do a job right now, I think anything's possible for Liverpool this season. I really do. And I wasn't saying that a few weeks ago. But if we can get that done in the final days, who knows? Somebody mentioned Cheick Doucoure a minute ago, not in a very positive stance, but they did mention him anyway. And I've got another report to bring you about that man. And it comes from RMC Sport, and it's been translated for us by the kind people at Get French Football News. And it basically reiterates Liverpool's interest in the Crystal Palace midfielder, Cheick Doucoure. But what it does say is Liverpool are yet to submit a concrete offer to acquire the services of the Mali international. And it says a move is at a standstill. That's just because we haven't made a bid yet. It goes on about Liverpool's complete midfield overhaul. It says Liverpool are still looking to bring in a 4th midfielder rival, but Crystal Palace has slapped a price tag on Doucoure that is above the 60 million euro market. I've been told a few times by a few different people it's like 70 million quid. So yeah, I think it's definitely above 60 million euros, to be honest. No, it does. That's not very nice. I don't know what it means, but thanks. Is it a good thing? I don't know. But yeah, anyway, check the cover. Another one clearly still on the radar for Liverpool. For me, that feels like a really difficult deal to do because I've spoken to a few different people, including Sammy Mockbell on the weekend. And he told me that Palace would want around 70 million. And he also said that Palace will need to find a replacement for him. So to sign DOUCOURE, if you put 70 million down on the table for Cheick DOUCOURE, I think Palace find it very, very difficult to sort of turn their nose up at it. I really do. I think a club like that, with all due respect, when those sort of figures start getting branded around, they can't ignore it. They just can't. What they would probably need to do is they probably already need to be having conversations and sort of looking at who they might be able to replace him with, which is what they might be doing anyway. Who knows? They've always got to brace yourself for this interest. They're aware of the interest anyway. There's clearly been sort of inquiries made along those lines before all of this. So I don't know. Jay Smith says he's not worth 70 million, and it's followed up by another chat actually saying he's not worth 70 million again. Says way too much for him. I actually agree with you. And there's 3 comments in a row. 4 comments in a row saying he's not worth 70 million. So there's kind of a running trend there, isn't there? We get the theme. But I do agree. However, what I would say is that for Palace, he probably is worth that. And I think the waters have been muddied in the defensive midfielder market by the deals for Enzo Fernandez originally, Declan Rice a little bit as well. You could definitely throw Moises Caicedo into that market in terms of those prices have been so inflated that Palace therefore feel that they can add 20, 25 million onto the Cheick DOUCOURE price tag. Now that could be wrong, and Liverpool might look at that and go, no thanks, you're just making the numbers up as you go along now. And they'd be well within their right to do so. However, there's also the other side of that conversation, and it comes back to what I was saying before about investment, that if we feel that DOUCOURE is the right man for the job, and the man we need to move forwards this season, and indeed for the next 4, 5, 6 seasons, then you just go and pay it, don't you? Basically, it's as simple as that. And we might well be in that saloon now. I think Endo, I was touching on it before, I think Endo is a deal whereby we felt we'd missed out on Lavia, we missed out on Caicedo. We had to do something. We just had to do something. We couldn't wait any longer. And the DOUCOURE, the Gravenberch, the Kone, whoever else you want to throw, Andre, whoever else you want to throw into that mix, those deals were always likely to take a while. Whereas the Endo one, there was interest in Endo, and within like 24 hours, he was playing against Bournemouth. We obviously felt like we could get that deal done that quickly and pretty much on the cheap as well. So I think it was a good bit of business. I think it'll prove to be a good bit of business in the long term. However, I said it at the time, and I'm still saying it now, we need to back it up with something else. And this is where we are. This is where we are. Anyway, some more chats before I bring you one more news story and then wrap up. Teo says, hopefully we get Kone. Clearly I found a Manu Kone there. Yeah, Cuban Scouser, I agree with you, mate. I kind of was referring to one of our members there in the YouTube chat. It doesn't matter if he isn't worth it. It's what the market is dictating. Pay the 70 mil out of the 111 mil you were flashing around for Caicedo and improve our club. Yeah, I agree with you, mate, to be honest. And I think what I will say on that, actually, before we go on, is the Caicedo, that feeds a little bit of a red herring. I've said it a few times, sat in here. I think it was more a case of Liverpool felt that Caicedo was the answer. So whatever the question was, it was Caicedo. Therefore, we probably dipped into the budget for like January, maybe next summer. And we've done that a few times with the Gakpo deal. We did it with Luis Diaz. We kind of brought them deals forward. We are willing to do that when we see an opportunity that's right. And I think Caicedo was a little bit of that. But I take the point. There's clearly £111 million worth of money floating around somewhere. So go and spend it. That's a surname, that. Rory, I think that's just pronounced Rory. I massively apologise if I'm wrong. Rory Gogarty, I'm going to go with one of our members as well. £5 super chat, top man. I had hoped Endo would be the Milne replacement and not the Fabinho one. Yeah, 100%. Seems a decent squad player, but a bit underwhelming if there's no more. Yeah, 100% agree with you there, my mate. Absolutely. I think that is absolutely spot on. To be honest, I really do. I think as a Milner / Henderson replacement, I think Endo makes loads of sense. I think it'll be a good bit of business, like I said earlier. However, if he is the only proper DM that we sign, That's a problem. Matt Wiener, I think you mean Weefer, like Mark Smith says here. I seen this name knocking around a little bit over the weekend as well, to be fair. I'm not sure the links were that sort of advanced. I'm not sure there was much to it, to be fair. But listen, I wouldn't have sat here this time last year until we were going to sign off a Mello on deadline day. So I think anything's possible, quite frankly. So brace yourselves for the final view days. Oh God, Doz 87. That's the kind of joke I'd make. I like it. I liked it. I'm just going to pop into the Discord for a second before I move on. Yuri Chronic says, Klopp said Matip was up for protection. Yeah, I think that makes sense, mate. And listen, I get it. The fact we're having to protect him in what was his first start of the season pretty much is all you need to know about where we're at with Joel Matip, doesn't it? Let's be honest. It's not good. It's not good times. There is one more story I want to touch on before I begin to wrap up, and it was about a youngster, Liverpool, comes from Football Insider, and I've seen David Lynch has tweeted about this as well, so I'm not the only one right now. I'll get rid of that terrible joke first before I do this. There we go. Football Insider says Liverpool have put the green light for Luke Chambers to move to Swansea as they register their interest in a loan deal. Now, this is interesting because obviously he was linked to Bayer Leverkusen earlier on this year, this summer rather. And that Bayer Leverkusen is still keen on him, it seems. And the interesting part about that is Luke Chambers left back, can play left-sided centre-half as well. I think I'd rather he went to Bayer Leverkusen if it meant we got Piero Hincapié, to be honest. But yeah, I think for him, I think a loan move away would be a really good one. He had a good spell at Kilmarnock last year. I think he really sort of developed a lot in a short space of time up in Scotland. And I think sticking around at Liverpool this year won't hinder his development. Obviously, that's not mine, but he won't kick on in the way that he should. I think a championship loan move, or indeed a loan move to the Bundesliga, would be absolutely brilliant for him because he's not likely to play much for the Reds. Jarell Quansah is probably ahead of him in that particular pecking order, and for what it's worth, I'd like to see him go out on loan as well. But I think for Chambers, under-21s football and sort of academy football isn't enough for him right now. I think he genuinely needs to be playing. Actual senior football, and I hope he can get some, whether it be at Swansea or Bayer Leverkusen. There's some terrible wafer jokes knocking around in the chat now. Steve Wilton says Andre in January. Yeah, that remains a possibility, mate. It really does. I think the chances of getting him this summer, I've seen Fluminense won their Copa Libertadores first leg 2-0 against Olimpia, who are from Paraguay, I've since discovered. I think last time I was in here, I said they're from Peru. It is Paraguay they are from. I think Paddington Bears from Peru. Maybe I was getting confused. And I think the chances of signing Andre this summer are quite slim. Just because it feels like he's not going to sort of kick up a fuss and force the move. I think he'll stay there. Their season ends in December. Hopefully they'll have won the Copa Libertadores by then, and we can get Andre nice and cheap for like 20 million quid or something, which is insane value. Insane. Virgil, get me Jacob Greaves from Hull. I'm going to have to look that one up after I finish this. That's Florit Picker says Hincapié, Weefer and Andre in Jan. You all like this Weefer lad, don't you? You're all a big fan of him. I want to carry on. This is easier. We're getting a Florent again, that's why. Alex Campanelli says, I feel the only chance Liverpool sign a player now is if they go after another team with bench players or the transfer listed, seeing other teams won't have time. Yeah, the replacement thing is definitely a thing, and that's certainly the case with Crystal Palace. I know that if we do go after Doucoure, a bit of a late swoop for him, we might have left it too late. Palace might just turn around and say, yeah, the money's boss, but what do we do? You know what I mean? So you might well be right. I just hope that bench player you mentioned isn't Calvin Phillips, because forgive me for anyone who wanted to sign Calvin Phillips, but I am not on that particular boat with you. You can set sail into the sunset with your Calvin Phillips all you like. He is not for me. But yeah, Jurgen Klopp wants to sign. So Emmanuel Negussi says Jurgen Klopp wants to sign an 8 who can convert into a 6. Yes, I think he does. I think that's right. That's why Manu Kone to a lesser extent, but certainly Ryan Gravenberch fit that particular bill. I think I'm pretty much done. Sorry, I got a cough. 1 second. I'm glad to see people are saying no to Phillips. That's good news. I did not want to be on my own. YKA underscore 1166 says, would you take Amrabat for 20 million? Yeah, I would, by the way, first and foremost. And I seen a report this morning saying he's not been involved in the training and stuff, has he? And he wasn't involved in the matchday squads and all that. And I seen a report this morning, I think it essentially said that Fiorentina aren't bothered what fee they get now. They just want him to go. Like, they're open to anything. And if you could get Amrabat for that kind of money, then yeah, all over it. Mr. Robot 1998, should I say, says 40 mil for a player in the Brazilian league. I don't really agree with that. I don't think it matters what league they're in, does it, really? Like, if he's good enough, he's good enough. He's played for Brazil, albeit only once. He's only 22. I don't think he'd cost 40 mil. Actually, he's probably the top line amongst all of that. But I don't think it should really matter where he's from. And John123 kind of references the same thing. He says he's a beast player in the Brazilian league. Yeah, I'm not concerned by where he's come from. I think the reason you probably would sort of flag it up is because we very rarely see players come straight from Brazil to the Premier League. Like, certainly from a Liverpool standpoint anyway, it doesn't happen often at all. But there's normally like a stepping stone league, if you like. It's often Portugal. It might be, it's been Italy before and stuff like that, or Spain, or even France. But I think Portugal's the main one. They make the move to Portugal. They learn European football a little bit more, and then they move on from there. But I'd sign him straight away. I don't want him to go to Sporting Lisbon and suddenly Sporting Lisbon demanding, 100 million in 12 months' time for him. What's the point in that? Go straight to the source, get it done. Subway Sweden says Andre is boss. I just hope it goes through in January. Yeah, so do I. That's a comment. I'll touch on your comment first, Subway, because as far as I know, the conversations I've had around it, it still remains the case. So that could well be a January thing. There could be some movement on that as early as like when our transfer window closes. The last I was told is the minute our deadline's done, Liverpool will then talk with Fluminense and sort of get that deal lined up for January, because that's when their window opens in December. Ours obviously opens in January, so yeah, there's a good possibility that could happen. Flaviet Pika says, name me one Brazilian player. I've got to get that back up, sorry. Name me one Brazilian player that hasn't made it on the European stage. Not one. I mean, there's definitely a good few that haven't made it in Europe. Like, that's a mad thing to say. No Brazilian players ever not made it in Europe. That's what you're telling me. Put him right in the chat. I've got a super chat to do. Baked, fantastic win. Curious, what's your beef with Anfield Agenda? I'm new to the channel. I've wondered what has gone on between you two. All good if you don't want to say. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't think there is a beef there. I don't have any beef with that man. None whatsoever. And if somebody else at Redmen has, then I can't speak on their behalf. I will not do so, Your Honour. But I have no problem with Anfield Agenda at all. If he's got a problem with us that I'm not aware of, sound. But Baked, thanks for the super chat again. But mate, I can't help you. Honestly, I can't help you. And again, like I say, if I'm missing something that's been said previously, then so be it. But I can't help. Dawes87 really. Did he say something about my hat? Because that'd be too far. I wouldn't be happy with that. I'm not going to buy into this. Guys and girls, come on. You know I'm better than this. You're better than this as well. I expect more. Did he, Dawes? Yeah, that's heavy, that, if he did. I'm not gonna go down this rabbit hole with you all. I'd like to, but I'm not going to do it. Alexander Pato, somebody mentioned from the Mighty Reds. I don't think he flopped in Europe. I mean, that might be a little bit harsh, but there's been a good few. I mean, Arthur Mello, somebody's bringing up as well, yeah, possibly. Anyway, Tim Maslin says, what do you think of Liverpool's terrible start in the past two games? Trent being at the heart of it. I don't think we started that badly yesterday, actually. I think the first sort of literal 5-7 minutes or whatever were okay. It was when the Trent thing happened that we lost our way completely. And I think instead of us losing our way, which was definitely a thing that happened, Newcastle actually gained in confidence, and it sort of got their crowd riled and they were really up for it, and all of a sudden we didn't react, we didn't respond well at all. It was more a case of Newcastle going up a good few levels and us not moving with it that meant that they very much took control of the game and we didn't react, just didn't react in any way, shape or form. In terms of Trent, he had a disastrous 10-15 minute spell, but I actually think he managed to sort of calm himself and regroup quite well and finish the game not outstandingly, like he wasn't sort of, pulling the strings and making things happen left, right and centre, but I think in very difficult circumstances, already on a yellow card, I actually think he ended the game okay. Dom Lear, I don't see that resemblance whatsoever. Not one little bit, to be honest. The beard, got a beard. I don't think he'd ever had a beard. Robert Randers, I will start wrapping up now, because I'm aware we've descended into utter chaos. Hincapi, Robert Randall says Hincapi is the answer, but will they sell him? I don't think they will, to be honest with you. Miles, I'm just laughing at a Discord comment. Miles in Discord says LFC can sign Calvin Phillips instead. Yeah, they can. They're welcome to him. They can guarantee some add-ons that aren't achievable as well while they're at it, letting him crack on. He also says, theoretically, can't we just agree a 20 million deal now and loan him back? Wouldn't that just be the same as secure him? Yeah, I think theoretically that would be the case. I think the issue with that would be, and I actually agree with what I'm about to say here, which sounds like a mad thing to say, but I think the issue there would be the fact that we'd signed a midfielder that we clearly need, and if you then sort of loaned him back as like a goodwill gesture, that wouldn't look great. It wouldn't reflect well on us, because if you don't then get another one, all of a sudden you've actually got one through the door and then give him back straight away. You know what I mean? So I get it. And in essence, what you're saying is correct, because you've got the player then, and you are also allowing him to go and finish the season at Fluminense, which is, all parties are happy with that, of course. But like I say, the look from a Liverpool perspective wouldn't be a good one, because you've signed the player that you need, and you immediately loaned him back to his former, what would be his former club by then, of course. Sigmaverse, Nunes to start against Aston Villa, probably. Yeah, probably. I think he might have to. Instead of who? Your guess is as good as mine. You put him on the left instead of Diaz and keep Wagapo up front. I don't know. Anyway, I will start wrapping up. But yeah, thanks very much. I don't think I've got anything else to say. I'll quickly run over the news like I always do. I'll get that comment down first before we do so. Cool. First and foremost, Ryan Gravenberch has spoken out about his future. He said he doesn't know what's going to happen. He didn't say he was going. He didn't say he was staying. That's enough for me. Liverpool hold an interest in Cheick DOUCOURE. Nothing concrete just yet. Luke Chambers could be off to Swansea. By Leverkusen are also still interested in him. And there's one story I didn't touch upon, and it's Ben Jacobs has told Give Me Sport that Liverpool have internally discussed Douglas Luiz. I have no time to internally discuss that with you guys. Make of it what you will. All I'll leave you with is thank you so much for getting involved, as always. It's much appreciated. I really hope Liverpool sign some footballers. Until we do that, you'll be seeing a hell of a lot more from me this week, a hell of a lot more from Chris as well. Take care, look after yourselves, take it easy.
Thank you so much for watching. The new season is here. Come and join us over on redmenplus.com for fantastic shows, pre and post-match content, journalistic insights into all Liverpool's transfer business, documentaries, interviews, features and more. Head to redmenplus.com, sign up today and fill your boots with Boss Liverpool content.